Hi, this is Tom from MVP Chess. Welcome back to my series on Bobby Fischer's seminal work, My 60 Memorable Games. In this video, we'll be analyzing game number 6 that Fischer played in 1959 versus Shocron in Mar del Plata. Before we jump into the analysis, don't forget to like, comment, share, and most importantly, subscribe. You can do so by clicking the subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Thanks so much. Really appreciate your support. All right. Let's jump in. Of course, pawn to e4. Fischer with the white pieces, best by test. e5, knight f3, knight c6, and bishop e5. So Spanish on the board. Fischer did dabble in the Italian a little bit with bishop c4 here, and we'll see a few games in this opening later in the series, but the Spanish was definitely Fischer's main weapon versus the king's pawn opening. We have a6, Morphy's defense. Fischer liked to play the exchange variation, capturing here on c6 on occasion, but usually opted for the main line, preserving the Spanish bishop, bishop a4, knight f6, castles, bishop e7, and rook e1. Okay, so there's a threat in the position now. So this is really important to know if you play the Ruy Lopez from the black side, or white, is that white is now threatening to capture this knight on c6 and win a pawn on e5. So black must play in this position b5. So after bishop b3, we have castles, and Fischer plays c3. This is a really important multi-purpose move in the Spanish. Okay, it not only prepares the central pawn break d4, but it also gives the bishop an escape square in the event that black plays knight a5 trying to win it. So we have d6, h3. Fischer takes control over the g4 square. He doesn't want to allow this bishop to come to g4 and pin the knight on f3. This would make it more difficult for white to play the key central break d4. Knight a5, of course bishop c2 here. We've got to preserve our Spanish bishop. It's often white's best minor piece in these openings. c5 and d4. Okay, white got the key central advancing. And after queen c7, Fischer plays knight bd2. This is a really common maneuver in the Spanish to route this knight via b1 to d2 to f1, where it can either jump to the e3 or g3 squares, and can also be a really potent attacking piece on the king side. Bishop d7, knight f1, and after rook e8, Fischer decides to bring this knight to e3. He's got a particular plan in mind here, which we'll see in just a bit. Shocron plays g6, very common move from black in these Spanish structures. Not only does g6 take control over this key f5 square, but it also allows this dark squared bishop on e7 to come to f8 and then to g7, so that black can create a fianchetto structure on the king side. Fischer captured on e5 here and then played knight h2, and says in his annotations that you could describe the hole on d5 as gaping. Thought that was a pretty funny comment. But that explains the exchange on e5. Fischer wanted access in certain variations to this square on d5. Rook a d8, Shocron develops, and Fischer gets the queen out of dodge. That's an important alignment to avoid. If your opponent puts their rook on an open file opposite your queen, get the queen out of there. Bishop e6, and then now we see Fischer's idea. Knight hg4. And after takes, these knight maneuvers has allowed Fischer to open the h-file for an attack. Okay, that's much more important than this slightly compromised pawn structure. This pawn can actually be quite useful. As we'll see, it's going to come up to g5 in the game, but Fischer gets some much needed counterplay on the h-file and is going to hope to attack the black king. So we have queen c6, g5, nice move. Okay, really taking control over the dark squares in black's position and preparing the knight to come to g4. So it's a nice clearance move too. Shocron tries to trade off this knight, but of course Fischer says, no way, Jose. I am bringing the knight to g4, and I'm going to eyeball these really weak dark squares in your camp. Shocron understandably takes off this knight. It's just too dangerous of a piece to leave on the board. So, in the end, Fischer is left with a nice trump, the bishop pair, including an unopposed light-squared bishop, which can be a really, really dangerous asset. Knight b6. Fischer gave this move an exclam, and I agree. Really nice move from Shocron. First thing is, it prevents white in this position from playing a4. This is a really common pawn thrust for white to play in the Spanish structures, to try to activate this rook on a1. The other nice thing that knight b6 does is it anticipates Fischer's plan of attacking on the h-file and brings the knight towards the king side where it can come to f8. And there's a famous saying in chess that if there's a knight on f8, there is no mate. A knight on f8 can be a very, very nice defensive piece. So good move by Shocron here. We have g3. Fischer prepares to bring the king off the first rank so that he can bring his rook from e1 to this half-open h-file to launch an attack. Shocron plays c4 here. Great defensive move. So good play so far by Shocron. c4 is important because he wants to restrict the scope of this unopposed light square bishop. You can imagine if that bishop comes to b3, that would be a really good attacking piece. King g2, knight d7, rook h1, and Shocron is in time to play knight f8 to secure the king side. In his annotations, Fischer says, okay, this concluded phase 1. Shocron did a good job of defending his weaknesses on the king side. Now it's important for me to open a second front. So play on the queen side here is justified. And Fischer plays pawn to b4. This looks a bit anti-positional at first, but black is best advised not to capture en passant because this would bring the bishop to this really strong a2 g8 diagonal. And all of a sudden, this piece has really come to life, and this could be a very dangerous position for the second player. So instead, Shocron plays queen e6, offering the exchange of queens. It's always a good idea to evaluate queen exchanges based on the relative safety of the kings. I think in this position, Shocron offered the exchange of queens because he felt that his king was less safe. White had the better attacking chances, so let me get this dangerous attacking piece off the board. And Fischer correctly declined because with the half-open h-file, with the bishop pair, with this unopposed light squared bishop, he's got pretty good attacking chances in the position. Shocron plays a5, a nice little temporary positional pawn sacrifice to break apart Fischer's queen side structure. After queen a6, bishop b3, Shocron regains the pawn and Fischer plays a4. Knight e6. Oh, excuse me, rook a8. And we have AB, queen takes, and then rook h b1. So Fischer has done a good job pivoting from the king side to the queen side. Now he's got really good counterplay on these half-open files. His rooks are perfectly placed. Queen c6, and now Fischer finds a really nice maneuver in this position to gain control over the open A file. The A file in the Spanish is such a strategically important asset. So both players are best advised to try to fight for control of it as best as they can. Fischer plays rook b6, gaining a tempo on the queen, which allows him to double on the A file. So Fischer has won control over the A file. Shocron exchanges and plays rook to c8 here. offering more defense of this potentially weak pawn. Fischer activates his queen g4. This is why he left queens on the board, right? He's got play on both sides on both sides. Shocron's king is less safe, so good decision earlier by Fischer to avoid that exchange. Now we have knight e6. I knew that move was coming eventually. Sorry about that. And then we have bishop a4. Activating this bishop, it wasn't doing much on the c2 square. It was just biting on granite here. So Fischer reroutes it to this really nice diagonal on a4, e8. And is also perhaps preparing to play rook c6. So Shocron sidesteps that. Rook c6 comes anyway. And in this position, okay, Shocron has done a really remarkable job over the last 37 moves. Okay, really limiting Fischer's counterplay, finding nice defensive moves. So credit to him. But in this position, he finally broke. He finally slipped. He played queen d8, which is a blunder. Okay. Over to you in this position. What did Fischer play to win the game? Pause your videos. Congratulations if you found the really nice exchange sacrifice. Rook takes e6. Great move. Boom. Okay, and this sacrifice is justified by the following line. If black were to capture, after queen takes e6, rook f8, and queen takes e5, black is toast. Queen's ready to infiltrate here. You've got these powerful bishops just buzzing around the position. The black king is really exposed and really open. And on top of it all, Fischer has got 2 pawns for the exchange, so he's not even really down material. So this would be a completely winning position. But Shocron, according to Fischer in his annotations, had anticipated this move and thought he had set a trap for his opponent and quickly played queen c8, which Fischer gave an exclam. Okay, so he saw rook takes e6, but just said to himself, well, queen c8 pins the rook. Notice this queen on g4 is undefended. And he figured he was good to go in this position. But not so fast. Okay, it's so important, and Shocron is guilty of this. So many chess players, myself included, and many of my students, cut their calculations off too early. You should always push yourself to try to calculate a move or two further than you think you need to. Okay, really push yourself to do that in your games. That's where tactics are missed and games are decided. So, Shocron missed an awesome move in this position. Over to you again. White to play. After Fischer's next move, Shocron resigned. What did Fischer play? Pause your videos. Okay. So white has a tactical problem in this position because the queen is undefended. Meanwhile, black's queen is defended, but Fischer can turn the tables by playing the awesome move, bishop d7, double exclam, boom. Oh, what a move. Okay, now the queen is under attack. In this position, Shocron resigned. And the tactical justification is that if the queen takes, notice now the queen is no longer defended by the rook. Fischer has the killer move, rook takes g6, discovered attack on the queen with check. And white is completely winning here. So Shocron did a really great job in this game of defending, but Fischer just kept putting him under pressure, forcing him to solve complex problems, keeping counterplay alive like the queens on the board, and eventually he was able to force his opponent into a blunder. Okay, so really great play by Fischer. And as we foreshadowed, what piece won the game? The Spanish bishop. Okay, it is just such an important minor piece. So if you're white playing these structures, be sure you preserve that bishop. If you're black, try to win it. Okay, otherwise it might come back to haunt you like it did Shocron in this position. So I hope you enjoyed this video and the analysis. Don't forget, again, be sure to subscribe. You can do so by clicking the button in the right-hand corner. You're not going to want to miss future installments, so be sure to turn on your notifications as well. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you next for game number 7. Take care.